Hello and welcome back to the A&A podcast. I'm Ashley. This is post-production Ashley, actually, coming to tell you what you're going to be listening to and or watching today. So this is a conversation that Jacqueline and I had concerning how to cultivate your relationship with Christ. Now, usually I'll release Bible Basics episodes every 2 weeks, but because this is a conversation that has gone on multiple weeks, I'm going to release the first set of videos right in order. So this will be the first part. The second part will come next week, and there'll maybe be a third part coming the next week. There's another whole chunk to this conversation that we had, but I'll release that later. Don't you worry about that. For now, have fun listening to our conversation. This one's just kind of the introduction on what we're talking about. And hopefully it serves as a little bit of encouragement for anyone that feels like they're a little bit struggling to cultivate their relationship with Christ. Jacqueline.
Yeah,
Tell me
for
a little
sure.
bit about
I'm
this.
super excited about this one. When you asked me to do it with you, I just love this subject, but also was really convicting because it just reminds me of how much I need to get back into it. And I know this isn't going to be coming out until like middle or end of February or who even knows,
Yeah.
but we started thinking about this in January. And so at the beginning of the year, so I was actually flying to Guatemala, I think, when I was working
Yes.
on this. And so brand new year, this is a great time to think about how to cultivate your relationship with Christ. I feel like it's one of the main Christian New Year's resolutions, right? So I think this is great, and it was great for me to think about and get convicted about. And I started, writing some notes and thinking through it. And then I remember messaging you. I probably was so annoying how many
Oh
times I
no.
messaged you. I was like, oh wait, what about this? Oh wait, what about this? But I know that you asked some questions on social media, I think, because we were talking through that. And I can't even remember all the questions that we asked. You have them by chance with you?
I do. We asked
Okay, awesome.
two questions. One was what gets in the way of cultivating a relationship with Christ, and then the other was um, what we think cultivating a relationship with Christ looks like. So I'll read the first one first. We got a lot of replies for this one.
Yeah.
And so this is what was holding people back from um, cultivating a relationship with Christ. One person said, it's overwhelming, not sure where to start or what I should even know. Seems so far
Mm.
behind. She feels like she's so far behind in comparison. Another guy said, a lack of willingness, even when I'm reminded I lack the action needed to follow through. Another girl said school, and along with that, too much on my schedule and not being able to say no, plus society's hustle culture.
Mm.
Even organized Christian things, sometimes they replace my personal time with the Lord. Um, Another person said life being busy or not putting God first is the biggest thing for people. Consistency, fatigue. Another person
Yeah.
said motivation to actually do it. So I think that was like, there were a few main ones. They were too busy, they lacked motivation, and they didn't know where to start. I think that's where we
Yeah.
sum that up. And cultivating a relationship with Christ, what that looks like, what people thought it looked like, was reading their Bibles, praying, going to church, spending time in Christian fellowship. So those are just a few of those are the few questions that we asked and the answers that we kind of
Yeah.
got.
Those are awesome. I'm really glad we did that because I kind of had an idea in my head. And like we asked that first question first because that's where I went,
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, we need to talk about motivation. We need to talk about discipline. We need to talk about different things, which we're going to talk about next time. But then I was like, whoa, 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 we need to back up because we can talk about, digging in and let's do this kind of talk. Um, but what are we doing? You know, and for believers all across the country, what is that? What does that look like? And
Mm-hmm.
we heard a variety of answers, Christian fellowship, studying the Bible, was reading the Bible, studying the Bible, Christian fellowship. I feel like there was another
Going to
one.
church.
Going to church.
Yep.
Okay. And but what's interesting about all of those is I feel like there's a common thread amongst them, and that's spiritual disciplines.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know like how familiar people are with spiritual disciplines. Um, Thanks to my brother is why I'm familiar with spiritual disciplines. There's a
Oh,
really
that's
good
cool.
book. It's down here on my shelf somewhere. Actually, I'm gonna grab it.
Okay, sounds good.
Hold on one second. I'm going out of screen for that.
Sounds good.
It's right here. This is the book that he always talks about. It's Donald Whitney's Spiritual Disciplines book,
Ooh.
Spiritual Disciplines for the Christian Life. And he it's I will tell you if you do read it, it's a little older of a book, so the language is a little older, but it's really good. So my brother, he is really into talking about it and really got me into talking about it and thinking about it. And I think you can kind of, there's not an exhaustive list. I don't know if there's an exhaustive list. I feel like it would be huge. And we can't talk about all of them today because there's too many. But I can, in my brain, kind of like separate them between more like um, inward growth and outward pouring almost. So you've got like your meditation, which is not Eastern meditation. We can talk about that another time. We'll talk about that here in a second. Meditation, memorization, I guess meditation and solitude, memorization, Bible study, Bible reading, those kinds of things. Then you have like your service, your fellowship, which are more outward pouring events. And then you have some in the middle because like prayer we do congregationally and personally, right? Or what was the other one? Fasting is also scripturally, congregationally, and personally. So I'm sure there's a middle zone in there. But these spiritual disciplines are all ways that we cultivate our relationship with Christ. It's growing in Christ, right? So that's kind of what we're gonna shift to today, is talking about kind of what those look like. What are they? What do they mean? Where am I at? How do I gauge where I'm at in it? And how can I grow in that spiritual discipline? But before we get into like those individual ones, which I'm excited to get into with you, because I know we're going to talk about like our different thoughts and ways that we've seen people do it. So I'm really excited about that. But I think it's important to address our mindset and what we see as goals and accomplishments. So when I worked with the interns, something that we would discuss all the time was stretching our spiritual muscles. That was our like term that we used all the time. And it's really the same concept as physical exercise, which I will tell you, I am the least sports person in my family. least of anything in my family in that regard.
Same.
But yes, yeah. But like think about if you're stretching, right? You stretch until it hurts, right? And then you hold it or push in a little more. You lean into it, right? And that's supposed to stretch it and make you more flexible is the goal, right? Or you think of running. I started running, oh, I don't know, several years ago, but I was horrible at it. And I remember going out with my military brother, right? Who's used to like running with the packs on his back. And we were running. I'd been running a little while, so we were running 3 miles. But that was a lot for me.
Yeah.
And I just remember dying. And he was gone, like he's far ahead.
Way ahead.
Way ahead. And I am like, you got that stitch in your side, like your lungs are on fire. I'm just like, your legs are about to give out. I'm just done. Right. And got my headphones in, and who should call but my brother? You got this, keep going. He was pushing me through, and he pushed me through. And I remember thinking, one, that's a great picture for accountability, which we can talk about another time. But
yeah.
Also, his goal for me was great. You run until it hurts, and then you run a little more. You stretch until it hurts, and you stretch a little more. And it gives you more flexibility and more endurance. Well, what do we need spiritually? Spiritually, we need endurance and flexibility. It's not a coincidence that Paul in his New Testament writings, and I think a couple other writers in the New Testament as well, but particularly Paul, discusses the Christian life like what? like the Olympics, like a race, like the games. And he talks about us running that race or stretching or preparing or whatever for those games. And I don't think that's a coincidence. I think that there really is something to that physical thing that we can see results with and bringing it into spiritual disciplines. And so I think that's important. And I think we need to recognize that it's different for everyone. So when we go into this, like, you need to think about this as a personalized spiritual fitness training, right? Like, you can't just like say, okay, step 1, 2, 3, go. There are steps and you can use that formula, but every single person is different. So like, for instance, I was talking to a young girl who was really struggling, and I was counseling her through some stuff. And I asked her, where she was. Like, have you been reading the Bible? Where are you at? Basically, she hadn't been in it for a long time, right? Like, personally. And she was so mad at herself because she wanted to be way up here. She's like, I can't do this. And I was like, okay, so you're telling me that you haven't run in 5 years and you expect to go run a marathon and not puke.
That's, good analogy.
Like, that's not feasible. That's not an attainable goal. Now, can you run a marathon? Absolutely. But let's build up to it.
Yeah, you can't just go for it because you will die.
Right. And even if you do, like, listen, I'm not going to be against you trying to, like, you haven't read the Bible in like forever and you're going to try and read it in 3 months. Go. But you can't be, what happens is we'll be like, okay, yeah, I'm going to do this. And I fall flat on my face week 1 and I am sore and hurting and I can't get back up and I feel like I'm done. And then what do? We throw our hands up and we're like, we quit. Like, I'm done.
Yeah.
And you just have to recognize that's what's going to, like, be okay with that happening. And you can do that. And you can puke in the bucket and then get up and start running again. Like, that's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're that type of person, go for it. But you have to understand that this is a journey. This is like not flip a switch.
Yeah.
And so I think we need to recognize that, because I think that's what causes us to quit really quickly.
Yeah.
When we don't. So that's what I think we really, really need to think about, is making sure it's personalized for each person. So, I can't remember if there's anything else. Do you want to add anything to that?
No, it's okay. I just think that, like, comparison is, what is it? Like, what's the saying? Comparison is the thief of happiness.
Yes.
And just like joy, like, when we're looking at other Christians, like, other Christians can be great models. Paul says, imitate me as I imitate Christ. But also, like, we can get caught up in, like, thinking, oh my gosh, I'm not as good as them. Like, I don't know as much as them. I just feel so buried. And I feel like that too. Yeah. Like, the person who replied to our story and was like, yeah, I just feel so, like, behind. Well, yeah, because it's so easy to see others and their, like, walk with God and maybe think that it's so perfect. But, like you're saying, like, we have to train and train and train. And when we fail, we train again until we get better and better and better. It's not a linear path. It's very, like, topsy-turvy and all around. So
for sure. And I think that also, like, when you're, like, we think that when we achieve it, we've achieved it. But, like, if you've ever been a runner or played any sport, like, if you let it go, like, think about how long it takes you to get back. And the older I get, the longer it takes to get back.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's just part of it. And so, like, my devotion life has always been the struggle for me. So, like, I feel like I go like this, like, I'll be really good for a month and then I'll be out. And, like, once I go out, I'm it takes me a long time to get back. But I think we need to recognize that too, is that, like, because you've been on the mountaintop before, if you've let go of that, like, you're gonna have to climb back up that mountain again. And so and that's really been beneficial in my life, because I've been to where I've had an hour Bible study every day and I was still feeling like I needed more. I've been there before. And so it's really frustrating when I get to a season of my life where I'm barely able to do 5 minutes, because I've already achieved the 2 hours or whatever. And so, and I'm a very check mark person, and so that can be really discouraging for me. And that the thing that helped me with that was to remember that muscle. Okay, this muscle has not been used, and I need to build up to there. And then that also helped me with the idea of like, you know that you can achieve that, and you can push yourself, and you know where to push yourself because you know that you can do it. So like you can keep pushing yourself to get there. But remember that you can push yourself slowly to get there. And I think that's the other side of the coin, is that like we're either have way too high of expectations, or we have too low expectations.
Yes, very true.
And that's the other side of that. And that's why, we say run till you can't run anymore, and then run a little more.
Yeah.
That's what we need to do spiritually too. And I think the other side that I see is like people being like, well, I can't do this, or this is all I can handle. Is it? Like,
yeah.
where do you need to push yourself? Are you really pushing yourself? And for sometimes it is. Sometimes that's all you can do. At that moment. But sometimes I think we get complacent in that spot, and we've stopped pushing ourselves. And so that's the other danger that you have. So I feel like there's those two sides of the coin. So understanding that it's a personal spiritual workout, in that you have to stretch until it hurts, and then stretch a little more. And if you do that, I feel like that is a good measure for it. Like I would take any person that came into me when we were the internship, I'd bring them in, and we'd talk about, we had probably 5 spiritual disciplines that we would work on a weekly basis. That's most of the ones that we're going to talk about today. And I would say, okay, if you're here, I want you here. If you're here, I want you here. And you know which level you're at.
Yeah.
So you better push yourself. Because I would have interns come in. And here's the other thing. When we go through this, you're going to find yourself saying that I'm really, really strong in one of them, more than likely. And you're going to say, I am crap at this one.
Yeah.
Or usually you have a strong one. And sometimes it changes based on like just your life. Like, for instance, if you're going through some really hard stuff, sometimes prayer is your high one. Because you mentally can't handle anything but praying, and it's driven you to your knees because you can't control the situation. So prayer may be your high one at that point, but maybe Bible reading you're really struggling in because you just can't focus, or maybe you're a studier and you love to study, and so Bible study, like you could sit there and study the Bible all stinking day long, but you really struggle with solitude. So you're gonna find that. And so like the point is like I'd have 5 interns say, and we have these 5 spiritual disciplines, and say we're working on memorization. Well, I have one who's dyslexic, ADD, and can't memorize to save their life. They've memorized one verse. Jesus wept. Woohoo!
Yeah.
Challenge them, but be excited when they get there.
Yeah.
I have another one who should be memorizing the whole book of Colossians, and I'm going to push them to do so. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, you have to know where you're at, and then push yourself that little extra. And that's the point. And that's what makes it personalized, I think. So.
Hello again, post-production Ashley here. This is where I'm going to cut it off. Next week, join back to hear more about this conversation. We'll be getting more into the meat of this episode. I feel like this one was kind of just an introduction, but I hope it served to uplift your heart and draw you closer to Jesus. I hope you have a great week. We'll talk at you next week.